All right, guys, welcome back. Today I want to dive into a little bit of a laser talk. This is probably one of the biggest risks that I've taken in business yet. Not only a change of pace, but a complete change of pace. But I got some notes here today to follow so that I don't just get on rambling. Hope that you guys find this educational, if you will, if you're trying to purchase a laser, whether it's a shop saber or laser in general. We love our shop saber. It's been in here for the last, since October. It's been a really big upgrade. We've completely scaled our business. So beforehand, for those of you who didn't know, we changed from handrails, structural porches, things of that nature, just general fab work as a job shop, if you will, to all laser cutting and forming. So we have an Iroquois press brake on the way. We're trying to get that in and obviously get that into production. So the biggest reason for that is the field work was really hard to scale, and it was really hard to keep going being a two-man shop, just Greg and I. So, like we had a project going on over on the lake, had big concrete patios, 2 or 3 levels of, I think it was just 2 levels of concrete, but a 3-level house. And it was hard to, plan the days out, and you never knew about weather, never knew about contractors on site. It was just all the time, back and forth, never knew when you were going to be able to get in or for how long. And then once you got the job done, you never knew if it was actually going to be what the customer wanted. It didn't matter if it was custom railings that you had a CAD drawing for, or just off the whim, hey, this is what I want. I tried to get really strict there towards the end, have a CAD drawing, have a contract, and that helped. But when you're working for high-end clients, it doesn't really matter what it costs to redo it. They just want it redone. And the custom side of it is really hard to manage, if you will. I kind of have a little bit more of a, I don't want to say creative mind, but like with Greg, I try to tell Greg something that I want and I can't explain it. Like I'm clear as mud. So it's not that he doesn't comprehend it. It's just that my delivery is not very good. So it's really hard to hire for that kind of stuff as well and to keep it going. So some of that stuff, maybe after a couple of them, I could step away from it, but I was still having to be there for the vast majority of it. And again, just being a two-man shop, a lot of the stuff Greg couldn't do on his own just because it's too big or too heavy. So that kind of moves us into why I wanted to take up the laser cutting. We had an opportunity to buy one from a friend of ours. Was just down one night hanging out. I had, kind of showing him the plan of my shop and the expansion and all that. And he was like, hey, what's that big blue blob right there? I was like, oh, it's a laser cutter, down the road, we'll get it and so on and so forth. And anyway, we had talked about it and he wanted to help us be able to pursue it. So that automatically, that made a huge shift in the company, where we focused our energy and our time, because the laser cutting is scalable. And it is, don't get me wrong, it's only one machine, but once we get everything done in here with the gantry system and all that, it should be a one-man band. We could run a day shift and a night shift, needed be if we got super busy. But it looked a lot better for us and our footprint, if you will. We're 35, 40 minutes from town. I know I've said that numerous times in other videos. It's hard to keep everything going at that. Whenever you get a job that's on the other side of Rogers, it's still an hour for us. So you take 2 hours of a 10-hour day, and throw them out the window. By the time you get on site, you roll out, you do your work, you roll back up, take an hour for lunch, you're losing half the day in either travel or pick up and clean up, or get rolling out and cleaning up. So it was really hard to make that justifiable, where this, I can literally walk out here, flip the lights on in the shop, 5, maybe 10 minutes, the laser's up, it's ready. We're loading DXF files in and ready to go. I didn't know, whenever I bought the laser, how precise it was going to be, how good it was going to be. I'd seen a bunch of videos on the internet, just like everybody else had. When this guy came to us and a friend of mine came to me, it was like, okay, I need to start doing some research. Is this an actual, feasible option for our shop? Because I think I mentioned in a past video that I'd looked at one the year before, but it was a 3-phase machine. And where we're at is just, it's kind of undoable. There's 3-phase power right down the road. And right down the road, like half a mile down the road. But the machine was going to cost, it was like $145, $150, which is a good price for a 6 kW machine, I think is what it was. Maybe it was a 4K, but it was a good price. It wasn't wasn't anything astronomical, but I was gonna have to spend another $60,000 and get power over here. And that's not a blow number out of my butt. That's a legit number. Got a hold of the power company and, hey, this is what I need to do. So anyway, with all that being said, that was just completely unfeasible. When Chop Saber dropped their laser back in December of, I believe it was 24, it was, okay, hey, this is a single phase machine. We can actually talk about this now, and it was in a budget friendly, price range as far as a small shop like us. It made a lot more sense. Specifically, that's why we went with the 2KW. I don't remember the exact cost difference from the 4x8 to the 5x10, but as my wife, if she ever gets on the channel, she will let you know very quick that when we bought the 4x8 plasma table, that she told me to go with the 5x10, and I didn't want to mess with it. For whatever reason, it was like $10,000 more or whatever, and it just scared the hell out of me. Not like this didn't, but it still was, it was more money, and I had to pay that back obviously at that time. And we weren't near to the scale that we are right now. Another big thing why I went with a 2KW. So they were saying that we could cut up to, I think it's 5/8 is what they're marketing. And then of course, all the way down. And my wife and I were talking, Greg and I were talking, and it was like, okay, great. That's a pretty good medium range. And then I got to talking to one of my friends out of Seattle, and he said, man, have you messed with much stuff over 1/2 inch in general? And I was like, no, not really. Why? Why do you ask? He said, because it's a pain in the ass. He said, everything about it is a pain. And I really got to thinking about it. And, we were about to gear up and try to buy a bigger press brake, bigger laser, just try to go big, big, big. And to be real honest, I don't want to mess with that big stuff. Just being a 2-man band, our monthly bills aren't crazy. They're still decent for a 2-man shop, but it still was like, okay, I think we can make a pretty good wage on 1/2 inch plate and under. This one does 1/2 inch. It does it great. It does it slow, so it uses a lot of oxygen, but nevertheless, it still does it. So like our punch plates and stuff for the mining company, it does those great. 3/8 and down is where it really sings a good song. Not a lot of gas consumption, cuts decently fast, and we can get parts on and off the table really easy. And the other reason that I went with this machine was because the ROI. I've said in videos past, the plasma, it's always seemed like we were in that $80 to $100 range was kind of the max is what we could charge. It seemed like every time we got higher than that, everybody just kind of started to squawk out. Of course, when you have laser tables that are running, twice as fast and a lot cleaner parts, it's hard to compete with those, because on the plasma side, we were cutting parts, and again, 20 minutes of cutting is 20 minutes of cleaning pretty much. You might save a minute or two, but by the time you get the part off the table, get it to the table, string out grinders, clean the part up, especially for onesie twosie stuff. It was really a pain in the ass sometimes. But if you had a big production run, the plasma was running, and you had somebody grinding at the same time, the hour rate kind of just morphed together. But when I have to charge, $100 an hour, if you will, to run the plasma, and then I got to charge $80 an hour or $65 an hour even to have somebody cleaning parts, you're within about 10 or 15 bucks of what we're charging to run this thing, and it's right off the table. So, where the cost might be there, about the same from one to the other, the quality is a lot different. The cut's a lot better, it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot more precise as far as up and down. So that just really made us start thinking, if we could get into strictly laser cutting and forming, how much more work can we produce? How much more work can we get going in? And it was like, man, I think 2 years, this thing is well paid for. And that's 2 years of, kind of trying to find our feet, struggling, trying to get business. One of the big things that Greg and I always complain about in business is we can build anything. I could, short of building a rocket ship to go to the moon, I think we could build just about anything in this little shop out here, but we cannot market to save our lives. So that was one of the things with the laser. I already had some people that were in that world. They kind of knew what was going on. They knew the prices. They knew the struggles, trying to church us up a little bit to make us, yep, go buy it, whatever. But another opportunity, the big man opened another opportunity with this mining company, and the thing's rolling. The ball's rolling down the hill, and it's going really good. At the rate we're at right now, let's say everything picks up about 15%. So we actually just started running the machine, not even full tilt yet, but decently good. I would say we'll probably, see a return on the investment 12 months, 13 months. And that's actually stretching it. I think by the end of the year, this year, I think we'll already be paid for, if you will, and being able to stock money back away. So, and again, everything can change tomorrow, with all of the geopolitical wars and crap going on right now. You never know what's going to happen in business, but right now we're hitting a pretty good stride. People are starting to find out that we have the laser. The people that are finding out that we have a laser are also finding out that we have a press brake on the way. So that's making it that much better. Where one of the big reasons why I bought it, this specific model, was the signage and stuff. We went to some craft fairs and things like that with, little signs and trinket style stuff with the plasma, and it was just super hard. The detail wasn't there. There's a lot of time and cleanup. It was just really, on the sign side, it was a pain. I'm not trying to sound like I'm dogging on the plasma. I love the plasma. It put us on the map, but for what we were wanting to do at the time, it was kind of a pain. But nevertheless, I bought this, I thinking, hey, we can hop into that world, Etsy or whatever, I don't want to be the Etsy seller, if you will, but hey, whatever pays the bills, it pays the bills. So that was another big pro, smaller machine, if you will, as far as price tag goes, and the wattage smaller, but you could still do a lot of that, 1/8 inch and down signs for people, whether it's farm signs or house signs or business signs, whatever. You can get some really good detail. And again, the best thing about it is, as long as you spend your time up front with it, boom, the part is ready to go. You don't have to worry about it, post process or secondary cleanup, whatever you want to call it. It's just ready to go, ready to stay running. So that was one of the biggest things. And like my notes here, the room to grow without having to leverage, a bunch of money or space, in the shop. Yeah, it's a pretty big machine. This little shop that we're setting in right now is a 40 by 25. This laser section of it takes up about 30 by 20 of it. It takes a decent area of the shop with the plate rack, the machine itself, the chiller, all the bottles and stuff that you have to have. You got to have room, and you got to be able to get in and out to load the machine. But nevertheless, for a one-man band or a little bitty job shop, you could take a 30 by 50 shop and put a laser in it and a press brake and then a little welder to tack parts together. And, I really think a guy could do really good. And I hope that we are, one of those. We're a little bit bigger. Like I've said before, we're running out of 50 by 100 here, but we still have to make the most of the square footage that we have. And then, it just helps with the vision. One of my notes was, I've got this arbitrary number of making $1 million 1 year. And whether we actually get there or not, I don't know. But that's where I would like to get. And I just think it'd be kind of cool to have a 7-figure company, whether it's for a year or, keeps standing the test of time and keeps going on year to year, would be really neat, especially out here in the middle of the woods. Yeah, and that's one of the other things that I wanted to point on. Serving manufacturers. So Shop Saber actually just released a video, I think it was this week, about shops like ours, not really, the small businesses, not quote unquote considering themselves manufacturers, all the big companies, 3M and Amazon and all those being the manufacturers, if you will, of the world. But there's so many small businesses, especially like ours, that are pushing and funding and really helping the big picture go on. I think I've heard in past, I don't remember where it was, but little fish, big pond. All the fish have to be in the pond for it to be, a good ecosystem and keep going. So I don't know. We help feed the big shops. The big shops help feed, another area or another industry, however, it goes, or wherever the parts are going. Like with us, with the mining operation, it's really cool that a little shop like ours, we're supplying punch plates and impact beds and screen rails and things like that to these big asphalt plants and big rock quarries and stuff. And those companies they're crushing rock, they're sifting rock. It may be going in your driveway. It may be going in your concrete. It may be going in the asphalt. You just never know where that material is going. But one shop like us, don't get me wrong, we don't supply everything to that operation, whether it be an asphalt plant or whatever. But all of those have metal parts, and all of those have to come from a shop. Some of those parts come from big corporations, 7, maybe even 8-figure companies, some of them. And it takes all kinds to make that plant run, from the salesman that's driving back and forth to us supplying parts. It's really cool for us to be able to be in that. And again, just another talking point on the laser, with it just being Greg and I, this was, again, just something that it's way more scalable. We can run a night shift. We can run a day shift with one person. We have semis bring the material in 95% of the time. All the parts and products that we build, either a semi, delivery truck, salesman from another company, whatever, from the company we're doing the work for, 95% of that product gets delivered back out to them, or they pick it right up here at the shop, and then it gets dispersed out to the client. For us, that's huge, especially being where we are. We don't have to drive, like even Springfield is one of our hubs, and we don't have to drive 3 hours to Springfield every week to drop parts off. We might have to do it once a month, or something like that, but we're not having to do that all the time. So it's just something that's a lot more scalable for a small shop like us. For us being in the middle of the woods, it's really hard to find help. You can't, being a small shop the way we have been the last 4 or 5 years, we can't afford to pay, top dollar for help to come in, which is what it would take for them to drive this far, because our margins aren't that good yet. We're going into our 6th year of business here now. So I'm hoping that this is the answer. Pencil to paper, everything seems that it is. I'll do a couple more videos like this, breaking down the numbers, what this machine cost us to buy, what it cost us to run, where our price point is at, why it's there, so on and so forth. I think it's going to be a really good adjustment for us. Now, whether it is for your shop, obviously you have to watch the other videos, and hopefully, it goes, hopefully I give you enough information to be able to justify your choice. But anyway, just to leave you with a little bit of tidbit information, if you will, on the costs and everything of the machine, so I don't leave you hanging here. We've got somewhere around 90 to 100 grand in what we've built right here, between getting the laser in, getting wiring and everything else. I personally don't feel 100% comfortable releasing Shop Savers numbers. Not sponsored by them. They're not paying me to do this stuff or anything else. It's just their business. It's about like me giving one customer a price and saying, here, this is because you bring us, $200,000 a year worth of business, and then somebody that's Joe Blow off the street coming in and kind of wanting the same deal, the same price. So I'm trying to be respectful to them, but that's, for us, that's about what you could plan on between buying the machine, a rigging company to offload it, the wiring and stuff. We already had a panel and everything here, but I'll deep dive into all of that later on. One of the big things that I did want to talk about, though, on the laser side of it, is being able to narrow down our scope of work. You hear everybody talk in business, don't be the jack of all trades, if you will. If you're a handyman, you have to be, but I'm not a handyman. I don't own a handyman business, that is. So with us, I wanted to be able to find 4 or 5 little niche avenues, if you will, to be able to capitalize on them. And the mining deal, just kind of landed in our lap, and that's what we're chasing right now. So if we can do that, be able to make steady revenue and kind of base our company, if you will, around that mining operation. And then we still do some other stuff, little fab work, maybe some ADA rails or something like that to help out local shops. We can scale a lot better, a lot faster that way. Whenever you do everything, it's so hard to plan for the next thing. You might get geared up to go build 1,000 feet of handrail on a casino, and then next week you might be building bunk beds, or you might be plasma cutting signs for, Joe Blow's farm, and then you might be back to handrails, or you might be doing fence, or you might be doing up and overs. You just never know where we were before. For us specifically, it was just really hard to point, that ship and go in the right direction. But anyway, I'll quit rambling. Like I said, over the next few months, I plan on documenting a lot of this stuff, our wins, our losses, the actual numbers of what this machine cost us to get in, to get it up and running, laser cost as far as oxygen goes, or gas costs. Yesterday I tried stainless for the first time, and I don't know if the book was wrong or I was wrong, but I burnt through a bottle of nitrogen somewhere around 10 minutes of cutting time. So anyway, there's a lot to learn, and I'd like to bring you guys along with us. I'm no spokesperson for anybody, anything, no gas company, no laser company, but I think that this information is very crucial to the industry, if you will, moving forward, and hope that I can be, Greg and I can be that kind of light to either shed of, yes, this is a step we want to take, or yeah, no, I want to stay as far away from that as I can. But anyway, if you made it this far, guys, please like, comment, subscribe. Hey, share this video if you guys are getting any good information out of this. We would greatly appreciate it. We hit 1,000 subs a while back, so we're trying to make this YouTube deal go. We're trying to make it worthwhile so that we can keep making content and keep bringing it to you guys. But anyways, see you guys on the next one, and we'll talk to you later.